I have been collecting video games since I was a child, but of course growing up I wasn't the smartest and I would get rid of several games that I really enjoyed and loved just so I could purchase new games. I traded in several games that was probably worth a whole lot of money for very little just so I can get brand new video games that were coming out, and I highly regret doing that now. So because of that, I have decided to kind of go back and get a lot of the older games that I have loved in the past, or in some cases, some games I never got a chance to play, and I'm kind of just backtracking at this point and getting a lot of games that I haven't gotten before, or games that I love that I've gotten rid of. All of the games that we're going to be talking about today that I'm going to show you all have been games that I've gotten from the months of summer, from June, July, and August. I don't really plan on buying any more games the rest of this month, mostly because I'm trying to save up some money at this point, but I have picked up several games this past 3 months. And so I'm going to go through all those games. I've got games from the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, and GameCube. If you're new to this channel, please like this video after you're done. Comment what your favorite game is that you played this month and that you got to play or picked up, or however you want to word it. And don't forget to subscribe because we do video game content here every single Friday. So thank you all so much. I appreciate all the love you guys have been giving my videos, and it just means a lot to me. Now, without wasting any more time, let's talk about the first set of games that I got, which is from the PlayStation 4. The first game we have is Endling Extinction is Forever. I mentioned this game recently during a PlayStation 44 PlayStation games coming out this year that you should get for the second half of the year. And honestly, this is probably one of the most depressing games that I've ever played, but it's such a good game. Endling Extinction is Forever has you playing as a mother fox as she tries to survive and keep her 3 little cubs alive. You are living in a world destroyed by the human race, and the ecosystem has suffered for it. As the mother fox, you will go from night to night trying to defend your cubs from humans, owls, and other natural disasters. Endling is a 3D side-scrolling world, and along the way you will train your cubs to survive, and as you do, they will learn skills to help you along the story. There are over 40 nights that you will have to hunt animals, scavenge for food, stay away from hazardous situations, and discover what happened to your missing cub. By investigating scents in the map using your fox's nose, and making it back to safety before daylight. I picked this game up on launch day and had it shipped from GameStop. I can't say enough about how much I enjoy this game. It is so fun to play. It's very sad, but it's just so good, and it's very well put together and tells a beautiful story without dialogue, and that sometimes can be a little bit hard. It's definitely worth it, and I recommend you guys picking it up ASAP. On a recent trip to a local retro game store, I bought a bunch of games from there, and I also bought a PlayStation 3, which I'm excited about and cannot wait to buy more PlayStation 3 games, because if you don't know, my PlayStation 3 games collection is kind of small, and all those games are really I just bought for my brother because he was getting rid of them, and I knew I was going to get PS3 at some point. But I got Lego Batman 3 during that huge purchase of games, and I'm excited about this because I've never played any of the Lego Batman games. Lego Batman 3 was released in 2014 and was one of those games that I did not really know if I wanted to play because I wasn't big into the Lego games series. The gameplay focuses on a third-person view where you fight enemies, solve puzzles, and collect Lego studs as the game's form of currency. You can also play as 2 players together and roam the maps and do the story together. And this game, of course, introduces so many famous areas of the DC Comics universe. In Lego Batman 3, you can play as many characters from Batman, Robin, Joker, Lex Luthor, Superman, etc. The game has several elements of comedy and action, and of course, it is kid-friendly. The story focuses on Brainiac capturing members of the different Lantern Corps and is out to capture Hal Jordan. This is the last Lego Batman game in the series that they made, and of course they have made other Lego games since, but this was like the last Batman one that they made. And of course they made a Lego Batman movie, which was hilarious, and I love it so much. But I hope to be playing this game very soon as part of my month-long celebration of Batman that's coming up in September. So the next 2 games for the PlayStation 4 are both games that I purchased at the same time off of eBay from random sellers, and they're both from the same series, and of course those games are the Sherlock Holmes games of Crimes of Punishment and The Devil's Daughter. I had never played a single Sherlock Holmes game in my entire life until I heard my best friend Tifa, who had bought these games and was raving about how great these games were. And so I purchased them as soon as I possibly could. So in Crimes and Punishment, it is an adventure mystery game that has you play Sherlock Holmes as he solves 6 different mysteries that are not connected in any way. Each case you solve is like a different movie or show and is taking place at different points in time. Each case has you talking to suspects, investigating crime scenes, researching and solving puzzles to get clues that can be used to solve the mystery. Each mystery is different, but most of the time they are related to murder. Each level plays similar as you have to gather clues, interview people, interrogate and profile suspects, and make deductions based on your investigation to make an arrest. The deductions are based on your investigation, and you can have multiple conclusions, and you can fail or succeed at finding the true culprit. The Devil's Daughter is similar in almost every way, except there are 5 separate cases to solve instead of 6. Both games are very fun detective games, and honestly, at the cheaper prices that I paid for both these games, about less than $20 each, and I think you can find these games for pretty cheap on PlayStation during sales multiple times. So they're very fun games, and I just feel like they're pretty interesting, short games you can play if you really love that mystery style of gameplay, which I have not played a lot of crime, detective games really at all, but I enjoyed these so much. Continuing down the same path as the last 2 games we talked about, I bought another game by the company Frogwares, and that of course was The Sinking City. The Sinking City is an action-adventure game set in the world inspired by the works of horror fiction author H.P. Lovecraft. The Sinking City is an open-world detective game that features an investigation system in which the outcomes of the player's quests will be defined by your observations of people, clues you find, and pieces of evidence discovered. The game is set in the fictional town of Oakmont, where you will have to travel around the 7 different districts by boat due to the flooding areas. You will also at times have to use different tools and weapons because there are otherworldly creatures out to get you and hallucinations you will have to dispel. Bullets are also the game's form of currency, so you have to balance out using bullets on enemies or spending it on things necessary for missions. There's also a sanity meter that is needed to use your investigation powers, such as reconstructing crime scenes and investigating clues. The game's atmosphere and the gameplay makes for an interesting experience overall. The game has a lot of similar qualities to the Sherlock Holmes series with the way they investigate things, but this is a different experience altogether because Sinking City is an open world game versus Sherlock Holmes is more of a linear path storyline that has you just fast traveling to all these different maps. And also both Sherlock Holmes games that I just talked about, neither one of them have combat in them. This game actually has some combat elements to it. And I've had a lot of fun with the Sherlock Holmes games, so I'm pretty confident that The Sinking City is going to be pretty fun to play as well. Along with getting Endling Extinction is Forever, I also purchased the brand new Digimon Survive, which just released a little over 2 weeks ago. And it's a unique experience that I wasn't sure if I was going to like, and I haven't gotten very far into the game yet. I have just played a little bit of it, and I'm really excited to see where the game goes. Digimon Survive is a visual novel and a tactical role-playing game. The majority of this game is a visual novel which has the player making choices that will influence the direction of the story, the Digimon's Digi-evolution process, and opens the game up for multiple playthroughs with different paths and Digi-evolutions. The game has many endings, and there are several parts of the game that where a wrong choice is made, a player may end up dead. Digimon Survive is separated into many types of gameplay elements, from drama parts, which is a straightforward text adventure element, search actions, which have the player searching for a way to survive, free action, where the player chooses where to go and whom to talk to during a specific time frame, and then lastly, free battles, which has you entering certain areas to train and the Digimon and collect items. Free battle is the smallest portion of this game, though. This game has got a lot of hate from people because they feel like it was falsely advertised as a tactical game, and it was more of a visual novel, which is what people weren't really expecting. But I already knew that going into it from all of the things I read and researched about the game. I was pretty much aware straight from the beginning that this was going to be from what I've heard from a lot of people who do enjoy visual novels, this story has such a huge horror element to it, and is probably one of the most unique ways Digimon has been able to be told in a story, because most of them are kid friendly, most of them are these simple storylines about saving the world, blah blah blah, but this is terrifying. People can actually die, and we don't really see that in most Digimon products in general, not just games but movies and anime as well. But that's not the only Digimon thing we got for the PlayStation 4 this month. We also picked up a game that came out a long time ago at this point, but that was the Digimon CyberSleuth Hacker's Memory, which is the sequel to the first Digimon Story CyberSleuth game. Hacker's Memory is a more traditional role-playing game that is played in a third person and has you commanding 3 Digimon as you fight random encounters And the game features over 341 Digimon from the previous game, and in this series it introduces over 92 brand new ones. The game can be played without playing the first game in the series, and it is the best Digimon game we have gotten in years, since the majority of them have been kind of just mediocre. Role-playing games, in my opinion, are the best way to play Digimon games, and so though I think Digimon Survive is a cool concept and I'm excited to play it, I do think that Digimon Story CyberSleuth is probably the game that a lot of us enjoy and want. And I'm really glad I picked this up. I need to finish the first one though, so I can get into playing this one. So, but yeah, 2 Digimon games on the PlayStation 4 this month, so not bad. So now let's move over to the PlayStation 2 side of things, because I got a lot of PlayStation 4 games, as you all noticed, but I did get a good amount of PlayStation 2 games, and I'm really excited about the PlayStation 2 games that I was able to get this month. So this first game is a game that I never owned on the PlayStation 2 at all. I have never owned this game in the past, but I have always wanted this game. Not because I think it's going to be a fantastic, exciting, one of the best games ever, but because I'm a big Batman fan and I want to play as many games of Batman as possible, and I have to play Batman Begins for the PlayStation 2. Batman Begins was an action-adventure game that incorporated beat-em-up style combat with stealth elements. You get to play as Batman as he uses a variety of gadgets to fight enemies, such as using batarangs, smoke grenades, and more. The stealth gameplay was very similar to the Splinter Cell series, and there was added elements of combat racing incorporated into the game. Batman Begins incorporates 20 clips from the film itself to serve as the cutscenes for the game. An overall story, though, it follows the movie pretty much perfectly and has the entire cast of voice actors from the movie, except for Gary Oldman, who was replaced for this film as the voice actor for James Gordon. The game has about some, mostly average reviews. It wasn't a very large, popular Batman game, but it was a game that many people thought was enjoyable and was probably at least one of the better Batman games we got in recent years, because the previous PS2, GameCube, and Xbox Batman games were not great. But of course, as we all know, the best Batman games were ones that came after it, with Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham Knight and Arkham City and all that stuff. Alongside picking up Batman Begins earlier in like June or July, I also got Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelist of the Roses, which was a game that I owned and got rid of and ended up coming back and getting it because it is probably one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that was ever made. Duelist of the Roses is a spin-off of the card game, as well as a sequel to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories game for the PlayStation 1. In Duelist of the Roses, each duel will take place on a 7x7 table where you command a deck leader who represents you and your life points. Once per turn, you move your deck leader as well as place cards on the field, and you can move the cards that you place and make attacks. The game is very similar to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game in pretty much every way when it comes to dealing life point damage, as well as winning when you take your opponent's life points to 0. The game is so fun, and it is loosely based off the anime and focuses almost entirely on a storyline they created about the Rose Duelist and having to pick sides between 2 different houses, which basically comes down to being on Yamayugi's side or being on Seto's side. And the game is just so much fun. It looks like a huge game of chess, and you're just kind of moving your pieces around and playing cards down and strategizing elements to it to try and win. It's just a whole new, unique way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Though I'm glad we have games that stick to the rules specifically of the card game. I'm just glad to have games like this, and I wish we had more of these, honestly. Recently, I made a trip to a local retro game store, and there I pretty much went on a shopping spree. I previously got the game we talked about on the PlayStation 4, the Lego Batman 3 Beyond Gotham, but every game I'm going to talk about from this point on was also games that I picked up during this shopping spree. So I'm excited to talk about all these games, and the first game that we're going to talk about from that shopping spree for the PS2 still is the Lego Batman, the video game, the first game in the series. The gameplay for this game is very much the same as the third game in the series and pretty much every Lego game in the series, but this one, of course, focuses entirely on Batman and his villains and family members. There are 30 levels in this game, and they are separated into 2 separate story modes with 15 levels each. One for the heroes, and of course one for the villains. Up until this point, LEGO games were mostly comedic retellings of other media franchises such as Indiana Jones and Star Wars. This game, on the other hand, has an original story that features Batman and Robin fighting criminals who are all escaping from Arkham Asylum. The game includes all of the villains such as Riddler, Two-Face, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Penguin, Catwoman, Bane, Killer Croc, Man-Bat, the Joker, Harley Quinn, Mad Hatter, Scarecrow, and Killer Moth. I have never played a single game in the LEGO Batman series, but I've always wanted to, and this is going to be my first time playing these games this coming month in September when we celebrate Batman month. So hopefully I get to get around to playing this game along with the second and third game. Kind of got to get the third game or the second game at this point so I can do that, but that's another story for another time. So on this recent shopping spree, I kind of went on a Batman shopping spree at the same time as buying a bunch of games connected to the Batman property. And of course, we kind of got a game that doesn't necessarily have Batman in the title or really have anything to do with Batman anyways, if you know what I'm talking about. And of course, that is the Catwoman video game based on the Catwoman movie. Catwoman is a third-person action platformer where you must use your strength, agility, and environment to defeat enemies. The game has a similar exploration system to Tomb Raider and is definitely not on the same scale as that game, but as Catwoman, you can climb walls, solve puzzles, and fight enemies. The game is also very loosely based on the movie. The game has a bad camera angle control, poor voice work, and combat is pretty much the most simplest it can be, and at times it can be very annoying to play, even for just a few minutes. This is one of the worst games that I got on this trip, at least rating-wise, from what other people have said about this game, and for the little bit that I played of it, it's definitely not as fun as I was going to hope it was, but I don't know what I really was expecting from a movie-based video game. Sometimes we can get some good ones. Some of the Spider-Man games based on the Tobey Maguire movies were pretty fun, honestly, but I'm going to torture myself by playing this game on stream, hopefully, when we celebrate Batman month, so we'll see how that goes. Now, we've already talked about 2 Digimon games earlier that I picked up on PlayStation 4, but in my recent shopping extravaganza, I also got Digimon World Data Squad, which is a personal favorite of mine that I used to own. Digimon World Data Squad is set in the anime's universe and has you playing as the main cast from the anime with their Digimon as you deal with the 7 Great Demon Lords. The graphics were cel-shaded and the battle system is a traditional RPG mixed with elements of what they called dramatic innovation. Your Digimon partners are impacted by choices you make and how you treat your Digimon, and it can impact how they battle and how they evolve. The Digimon will suggest to you what they want to do and you can follow what they want or go against it, which can negatively impact the Digimon. And you also have to use your supports to calm your Digimon down and strategize how you're going to beat your opponents. This was one of my favorite Digimon games growing up, and I really can't explain how much I enjoyed this game. I loved all the Digimon World games growing up, but for me, this one just felt like a true Pokemon-esque Digimon game because I had set Digimon and I could evolve them, and it just felt more natural than some of the other Digimon World games that I played growing up. But this game is relatively slow-paced and can be very frustrating at times and feels like the game's just dragging on well beyond what it normally would, and so some of those elements did make the game a little frustrating. Recently in a video, I talked about 9 PlayStation 1 games that are worth playing today, and on my recent trip that I went and looked at some retro games, I found a game for the PlayStation 1 that I completely forgot about, and if I would have remembered this game, I would have definitely added it onto that list because this was a fantastic title, and of course that game is Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX. This game follows in the same footsteps of the infamous Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series, and instead of a skateboard, you will use a bicycle. You can ride around doing jumps, performing tricks, performing bigger tricks, and going around different environments in the area. The game has a ragdoll physics that makes for fun wipeouts, as well as using it for the wipeout multiplayer mode. The career mode is called Pro Quest, and you ride around for 2 minutes trying to complete objectives. When you finish a level, you move forward to the next level, and in total there were 6 levels in the game, and you can unlock different bikes, clothes, and special videos of Dave Mirra and Ryan Nyquist. You can do sessions, which is about getting the highest score, or from doing tricks. There's free ride, which lets you roam around and do whatever you want. And then there's 2-player modes where you could play multiplayer matches from different mini games and challenges. This was very much a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game, but bicycles instead. And actually, for a short little story here, I actually found this game before I played Tony Hawk's. This was an early game that I played growing up when I was a child. I had this game before I even knew what Tony Hawk's was. I love the music in this game. It has such a killer soundtrack, and I completely forgot about this game, and I don't know why. But it is one of my favorites, and I am so glad that I found it. I paid only $8 for it, which makes me happy, and didn't know that there was a PS2 sequel until recently, so I'm gonna probably get that game because it's really fun, and it does hold up somewhat. I mean, it's definitely not good compared to some of the games I've played recently, but it's for its time, it was so much fun, and it's an enjoyable game. Then the last video game on this list, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I was going to talk about PlayStation 4 games that I picked up, PS2 and PS1, and I mentioned one GameCube game. And the one GameCube game that I picked up just so happens to be the worst video game ever made, according to several people at least. And that game is Batman Dark Tomorrow. Now, something before we get into this game and what it is and all that stuff, I just want to point out that this thing says that it comes with an exclusive limited edition comic book. And when I purchased this, I had no clue if it had it in there until I looked. And it does. I'm really excited that it actually comes with the extra stuff, and the Digimon World Data Squad game that I got actually had the stickers that was supposed to be inside of them, and that is rare. Because most games you buy that are like retro games, if it comes with any additives, they're typically not there anymore. So I was very happy to get those. But Dark Tomorrow is a linear stealth-based action game where you control Batman and fight crime. Go figure. Each level you have certain objectives to complete, and criminals will attempt to stop you progressing through the story. And of course you can't kill them, so you have to arrest them by handcuffing them afterwards. Other members of the Bat family make an appearance in cutscenes such as Oracle, Robin, and Batgirl, but you only play as Batman in this game. There are multiple endings, which only one of those endings is good, and the game has no warning or mentioning of how to get that good ending, and you just have to know what to do. Dark Tomorrow was originally supposed to be an open world game like Activision's Spider-Man 2 and have you travel around Gotham with different Batmobiles to use. It was changed at some point in the production of the game and was announced to be released on both Xbox and PlayStation, but it never made it to a launch on the PlayStation 2. The game was negatively reviewed because of the repetitive missions, bad camera angles, and the controls, and way too many bugs at launch. A lot of the positive things that came from this game was some people thought that it was a faithful representation of the comic books, especially like the designs of the characters and some of the story elements. And then of course some of the cutscenes a lot of people said were fantastic and some of the best parts of the game. But those are parts you're not playing. So to me, that's not good if all the good things about the game is the stuff you don't do. But I'm excited to play this game, as bad as it is. So I just can't wait to get to this game. I think it's going to be awful, but that doesn't matter. Well, that was the last game I picked up for the last 3 months. Those are the last games I picked. Those are all the games right there that I picked up for this past 3 months. And I personally cannot wait to get back to playing some of these older games that I enjoyed as a kid, trying out some of these games that I never got to play that I'm getting now, and of course playing, some of the newer games it's releasing, because I did pick up 2 new games in that list. Also, I want to mention that several times in this video I talked about playing certain Batman games during Batman month. For those of you who do not know, I do have a Batman channel called Blockade Who Laughs, which you can find the channel in the link in the description below. I will start streaming on Twitch soon, and in September I will be playing nothing but Batman games. Several of the games we mentioned today I will be playing on stream for the entire month of September, as well as the Batman Arkham series. I would love for you guys to come out and join me and celebrate Batman month all month long in September. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for checking out this video. If you want to, there's several new videos on this channel that you probably haven't seen yet, so go check them out. We have PlayStation 1 games that are worth playing today. We have a sale that's already over with now that you could watch if you wanted to, and we've got plenty of other content. So check those videos out. I would really appreciate it. And thank every one of you who subscribed to the channel over the last 30 days. And thank all of you and I want to thank all of you for just being awesome and talking about games in the comments and just having a fun time. And I hope to see you all come back for future videos. And I'm going to go off here and play some games myself. So I'll see y'all next time. I'm out.